I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I am your host, Dano, as usual. You guys, I have a great show tonight. I've got Al coming on in a minute, and Al, I'd have to say, is a pretty interesting character. Has had a lot of encounters. Al is part of the New York State Sasquatch organization and the New York State Dogman Project. Al had an encounter with a skunk ape in South Florida at the age of 12. And then up in the Hudson area of New York State, he had a dog man show up at his house. But before we bring Al on, I just want to say thank you so much for all of the support you show the channel. You guys, I just let you know that I love supporting small businesses. So Al, Coffee Roasters, and I are teaming up to bring to you guys a Cryptid coffee. There'll be more of that to come. So if you guys want to check them out, head on over to allycoffee.com. That's www.allycoffee.com, and check out what they got and show them some love. We got to support those small businesses. Also, let you guys know that Josh Smith from Mysteries Unknown and myself, we've joined forces and we've created Mysteries and Cryptids. www.mysteriesandcryptids.com. Go over and check that out. I know Josh has some merch up there. I'm slowly getting my stuff together. I'm trying to figure out what I want to bring to you guys. I just don't want to bring the normal stuff. But yeah, we'll hopefully have that up 100% in the near future. Josh is super busy. I'm super busy. So that's kind of taking a little bit of a backseat, but we are paying attention. And one last thing, if you guys have had an encounter, you'd like to come on the show, shoot me an email at thecryptopodcast72@gmail.com. That is thecryptopodcast72@gmail.com. Without further ado, you guys, let's bring on our guest, Al. Hey, Al, how's it going, man?
Good, Danny. Thank you very much, Dano. Happy to be here, brother.
Man, I am so grateful that you reached out to me, because it was like I opened up my email and you did not disappoint, just with you coming straight out and saying this, and this. And I said, let's get you on the show. We're able to work on a date and a time, and here you are.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, brother. I really appreciate it. You having me on. I really do.
So before we get into your stories, I just have a real quick question to ask you. What got you interested in this whole realm of cryptids?
Well, it started with my mom. She was a psychic, and my brother was one of the first parapsychologists in the United States. And he had every book under the sun on anything you could think of. And he would, as soon as he finished reading it, I would read it. And, and I got to be honest with you, man. I remember being a kid going to the movies with my cousins, and there was like 10 of us would go to the movies every Saturday together. And at the end of one of the movies, they had like a little short movie, and it was the Patterson Gimlin film, at the, I think we're to see James Bond or something, and when they showed that video, that Patterson Gimlin, I remember turning to my cousins and saying, that is real. That's the real deal. And there was no doubt in my mind back then as a kid, 10-year-old kid seeing that for the first time, and talking to my brother about it and everything. And my brother, was much older than me, and he was like, "Yeah, get out. That's real. There's no doubt about it." And I always believed that. Took a lot of abuse from my family over it. You know what I mean? But it never changed my mind. And every summer, my father would send me and my cousin Anthony down to South Florida to my sister's house. It was our summer vacation, our camp away. And my brother-in-law would have us do, work on the house during the day till like 12 o'clock, then it got too hot. But otherwise, once we finished our chores, We had dirt bikes at the house to go riding in the woods. We had guns. We'd go shoot in the woods. This is 1974. Every pickup truck had 3 guns in the back window, and and we would just go in the woods and we shoot for hours and ride our dirt bikes. And like I said, because we kept getting sent back to my sister's house every summer, we got to know all the kids in the neighborhood, and we became good friends with a lot of the guys in the neighborhood and stuff. So, and my sister had a beautiful pool in her backyard and everything. And my brother-in-law was really good to us. He took us to Disney World and SeaWorld and all of that stuff, So it was a great time and great memories. And just one particular summer in 1974, there was a drought in South Florida. There was fires in the Everglades, and all the animals were being pushed inland. And my sister lived in a little town called Davie, Florida, and we were on the outskirts of the town itself. Like, we were right on the cuff of the Everglades in a development called Sunshine Acres. And my sister actually had 2 separate houses there. The greenhouse that she first built, that was like right in the beginning of the Sunshine Acres, and then the blue house, which she got later, that had the pool in the back. It was bigger. And we moved in, and we were back there that summer. And just us, me and my cousin, doing our chores during the day and hanging out with our friends at night. And he was 15 and he had a Florida driver's license. So, it was cool because he could drive. And we would work at the horse ranches farm, shoveling, manure and making money to buy beer to go hang out in the woods and have fires at night and, just chill out back there with the rest of the guys from the neighborhood. And one particular night, my cousin Anthony and I were hanging out like we always did. It was late. We were watching wrestling. I think it was like 12 o'clock. So we were watching wrestling, and wrestling was over. And my sister had a sunroom that faced the driveway. She had a circular driveway with a fountain in the middle, and the house was fenced in on 3 sides with a 6-foot fence. She had 2 canine German Shepherds. They were pretty big dogs, 120 pounds each. And we would sleep on that sunroof. It was a queen size pull-out bed, and it faced this giant window. This window must have been about 4 feet high and 8 feet wide that overlooked the front of the house. And one night we were going to bed, and we seen a shadow go across the wall. We didn't know what it was. There was sensor lights on the house, so if anything came in the yard or around the property, the sensor lights would go on. And the dogs went crazy, and so I jumped out of bed and I dragged the dogs. I put them in the garage, and it was like a smell like you've never smelled before, man. It's so hard to describe the smell. I always describe it the same way. Smell like 1,000 skunks. And we didn't know what it was. We didn't know what the shadow was. We didn't know what the smell was. And the next day we told my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law at breakfast, what we smelt and everything, and how the dogs went crazy. And he said, my brother-in-law said, it must have been the Skunk Ape, and me and my cousin Anthony, we just looked at my sister like, Skunk Ape? What the hell is Skunk Ape? We're from New York, and we live in the city. And she said, it's like the Florida version of Bigfoot. And we were laughing because, everybody knew Bigfoot was always in the Pacific Northwest, he wasn't down in Florida. And so we said, okay, Skunk Ape, we really didn't think much of it. We thought he was just pulling our chain and everything. And later on, after we finished our chores and we went out and hung out with the rest of the guys in the woods, jumping our dirt bikes and stuff, we started talking to the guys in the neighborhood, and they were like, yeah, when it gets hot like this, and we've been down here like 3 years in a row, and it always seems it's always hot, but this year, with the drought and the fires and everything, and we're pushing animals inland. I mean, I know one night I was walking both of the dogs in the woods where we rode our dirt bikes, and they treated a Florida panther, which blew my mind. I didn't even think Florida had big cats. And so, they said, yeah, it really exists, and it comes out when it's hot like this, and yada, yada, yada. And they didn't think anything of it. It wasn't a big deal to the local kids, So we're like, okay, this is real, So then like a week goes by, and it's been pretty quiet that week, all week long, and the week goes by, and then again, it's like another Saturday night, and we're watching. I'm going to date myself now, man. Don Kirshner's rock concert that came on at 1:00 in the morning, so that didn't end until like 2. And then we went to bed, and again, we're laying in bed, and we smelled the smell. So now, we know what this is. We see the shadow again crossing the wall. The dogs go crazy. I grab the dogs. I drag them in and put them in the garage because I don't want them to wake the whole house up. And I belly crawled back to the window, and the window had a curtain on it she pulled down. And I belly crawled back to the window, and I just peeked out the corner of the window at the bottom of the window just to see what was out there. And to my surprise, there was this thing standing in the middle of the driveway that was 9 feet tall, 4 feet wide, looked like it was 4 feet thick. It had red eyes. It had red tint in its hair. It was just massive. It looked like King Kong to me. And I thought it looked at me, and it did this incredible Hulk flex and scream, and it had canines, and I couldn't believe. I thought the window was going to come down when it screamed, and my cousin Anthony was just frozen in the bed. He couldn't move. He was just frozen solid. And hindsight being 2020, it probably seen its reflection in the big glass and thought it was another skunk ape. And I guess it was very territorial. But then it turned and started to walk around the side of the house. On one side of the house, we had, there were a lot of empty lots in this development. It wasn't completely built up. They were just building it up. And to our left, or you're looking at the house, to our left, there was an empty lot. So I dragged my cousin Anthony out of bed, and I said, come on. Let's go into the bathroom on the side of the house. It's right on that side of the house. There was a bathroom between two of the kids' rooms. And I said, we'll check it out as it walks past the fence, because now it's really pretty close to us. I mean, that fence was only maybe 15 feet away from the window, And as it got to that corner of the house, the sensor lights went on so we could see it clear as day. And, my cousin Anthony said, leave the lights off so it can't see us. And we left the lights off, and the window was tinted and the screen was tinted. And as this thing was walking along the fence line, it was looking at us, and it was looking at us like it could see us clear as day. And we would duck down underneath the windowsill, wait like 10 seconds, and pop back up. And at one point it stopped, and it picked up a wild watermelon, and they took a bite out of this wild watermelon that left nothing but 2 nubs. And then it just dropped the nubs, and it was walking along our fence line towards the back of the house. So I grabbed my cousin Anthony, I dragged him out of the bathroom. I said, come on, let's go into the back patio. My sister had a beautiful screened-in patio. And I said, let's go to the patio. We'll leave the lights off. And when it passes the back of the house, the sensor lights in the back will go off, and we could check it out. And again, as it passed the back of the house and the lights went on, it was looking at us like it could see us in that patio, even though it was pitch black in that patio. And it walked to the end of the fence line. And at the end of our fence line, the neighbor behind our house had a man-made lake, and it squatted down, and with one hand it cupped water, and it was drinking the water out of the man-made lake. And then it walked off into the woods where we rode our dirt bikes, where we had our bonfires and stuff. And it just started screaming. It just went off. And, once it started screaming, the cows were going crazy, and the dogs, every dog in the neighborhood was barking. And so we were all amped up. We couldn't sleep that night. We couldn't wait for my brother-in-law to wake up. We told him what happened, and he said, "Okay, let's go check and on the side of the house and see if there's any footprints." And we went out there, and there were footprints, and they measured like 18 inches long and 9 inches wide. And my brother-in-law says, "Okay, when I come home, I'm going to come home from lunch," because he had a restaurant. He worked at the restaurant. He ran the restaurant. And he said, "I'm going to come home from lunch with some plaster of Paris. We're going to cast these prints." He wanted to put 2 up on the bar in the house and 2 up at the bar at the restaurant for conversation piece, Unfortunately, the restaurant got really busy. He never came home. And then the horse rancher who lived at the other end of the development, when they did their tours, they would always ride right by our fence. It was like a shortcut to those woods. And the horses went, of course, the horses went by and destroyed all the footprints. So we never able to cast any of those footprints. But that was really like the first sighting of the creature itself up close and personal. And the way I come up with the height of the creature, 9 foot, I'm going to say it was 9 feet tall because the fence was 6 foot tall and it was head and shoulders above the fence. And it was a good 2-3 feet above the fence. And I'm going to say a minimum 900 pounds. I go 100 pounds per foot and I'm probably light, but it was surreal seeing it up close and personal like that. Time slows down, and you know what I mean? It's like you're watching a movie. It's a very surreal kind of experience when you see these things up close and personal, because your brain can't comprehend what your eyes are seeing because they're not supposed to exist. But there they are right in front of you. There it is right in front of you. And that's how it basically started. And then a few nights went by, a week or so went by, 4th of July and all of that stuff. This was definitely in July. And one night, my brother-in-law came home. I think it was a Friday night. He came home from the restaurant late. And he used to bring us all the burnt pizzas, because being from New York, we like our pizzas done well done, So he would bring them home, not to throw them out. And me and my cousin Anthony would eat them. But my sister was up that night too, waiting for my brother-in-law. And the 4 of us were sitting out in the patio and we're eating the pizzas. And all of a sudden, we started hearing gunshots. Boom, 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 like a 30-30 going off. So we all ran to the side of the house where we heard the shots come in, and we could see muzzle flash coming from the horse rancher's farm at the western end of the development. And he said, "Why don't you guys jump on your dirt bikes and go down there and see what's going on?" So we did. We jumped on our dirt bikes and we drove across everybody's lawn that was in that development. We weren't even going around on the street because it would have took too long. So we just drove across like all our neighbors' lawns, and we just drove and we got down there. And when we got down there, all of the neighbors from that corner, which was like right across the street from my sister's first house, the greenhouse. So all the neighbors were out and on the street, and we got there, and our buddies, his father was the one who owned the horse ranch. He was the one who did the tours in the woods. Sometimes we would take tours out if he didn't have anybody, because the horses knew where they were going anyway. And we just had to make sure no one fell into the swamp, So we get there, we see our buddy, and we're like, "Hey man, what happened?" And he's like, "You're not going to believe what happened." And he's telling us, my father just got this wild Mustang from Wyoming, and he had it in a corral because he had a Seminole Indian coming every day to work it. He couldn't put it in the stalls, in the barn, in the stalls with the other horses, because it would kick and it would make all the other horses nervous. So he would leave it in the corral at night. And apparently, and his pasture led right up to the swamp. So like when you got to the end of his pasture, you were in the cattails. And apparently this creature creeped out of the cattails up on this wild Mustang and grabbed it on its hind quarters. And what we were told by the Native American who came the next day to get the horse was he believed that when this creature grabbed it by its hind quarters, it kicked the creature, it kicked out of the creature's grasp, jumped over the corral and ran into the pasture. By that point, the farmer had come out, the rancher had come out, and he started shooting at the creature with his gun. And when the Native American went into the pasture that day to get the horse, and he brought it back to the corral, when he got it into the corral, the horse had handprints on its hind quarters, not claw marks, handprints. Like if someone was to grab you by your wrist and just squeeze really, really hard and then take his hand and you see that finger marks, that was what was on this horse's hind quarter, and of course the rancher was screaming at the sheriff saying, you guys got to do something about this. I just, brought this horse in from Wyoming. It cost me a fortune. And, he was just going nuts. And you got to understand, Davie was a small town in Florida. It had dirt roads, no sidewalks. The biggest thing that happened in Davie was the rodeo on the 4th of July, and it was a real cowboy town. And so this town was like Mayberry. It had a sheriff and a deputy, and that was it, And so he said, okay, we'll start picking up the patrols out here at night. You guys seem to be, having a lot of action out this way, and, we'll pick up the patrols. And so the horse ranger said, okay. And, and then a couple of weeks went by where it was all quiet and everything. And then my sister and her husband were entertaining friends from New York. They flew into Florida, and my brother-in-law said, listen, you know where the guns are. You're babysitting the kids. If this thing comes back, let the dogs out, get the guns, yada, yada, yada. And, if anything happens, and we're like, yeah, nothing's going to happen, and they went to, I think he took them down to Miami for dinner and dancing and all of that stuff. And they finally got back home around 2:00 in the morning. And when they pulled into the driveway, the dogs heard them come into the driveway because the dogs went crazy. And everybody had to go outside because the dogs needed to go outside. And we went outside, and I'm talking to my sister and my brother-in-law. And my brother-in-law just bought a brand new Lincoln Continental Mark III or something with a sunroof. I mean, just mint car. And my brother-in-law said, any action tonight, And we're like, no, quiet night. No sooner did we say that, we hear a blood-curdling scream. I mean, the kind of scream that just sends shivers down your back. And just the hair on your back of your neck stands up. And my sister freaked out. She grabbed both of the dogs by the collar. She ran in the house and closed the door behind her. And my brother-in-law said, jump in the car. Because right after we heard the scream, we seen a double-barrel shotgun go off. Boom. And my brother-in-law said, jump in the car. Let's go to the cattle rancher's farm, see what's going on. So my cousin Anthony called shotgun. So he got up in the front seat. I jumped in the back. I told my brother-in-law to open up the sunroof. I was hanging out of the sunroof. And we get to the end of our block. We got to make a right to get to the cattle rancher's property. And as we're getting to that corner, the deputy is passing us. And he's doing like 2 miles an hour. And he's got the spotlight pointed to the left. Because that's where the swamp was, and the cattle rancher's property backed up to the swamp as well, just on a different side of the swamp. And we're going behind him, and we're crawling, and you can see another police car all the way at the south end of the property, the south end of the property. You can see like a headlights. So we kind of figured it was the sheriff coming the other way, because the one thing about Florida, it's so damn flat that if there's nothing in your way, you can see for miles. So as we're crawling behind the deputy, going 2 miles an hour, everybody's looking to the left because that's where the spotlight is. the creature comes running out of the darkness from the right. And the deputy hits it with his police car. And when he hits this creature, it's like this car hit a telephone pole. It just stopped dead. The creature stumbled back, and he took down like a school crossing sign, which was supposed to be unbendable up to like 250-mile-an-hour winds or something ridiculous like that. Well, when this creature landed on that sign, it pancaked that sign. Now, it gets back up, and it starts to walk in front of our car. My brother-in-law hits it with the high beams to get a better look at it. We're a car length behind the deputy, or no, we're 3 feet behind the deputy and car length behind the creature. And the creature walks up to the police car, and he looks in at the deputy, and he screams at the deputy, and he does a hammer punch with both hands, and he hits the front of this police car, and the back of the car comes off the ground. Now, we can see the deputy's silhouette. He's holding on to the steering wheel. He's not moving. Back then, they kept the shotgun between the driver and the passenger. It wasn't in the trunk. So, he's got his hands on the steering wheel. The creature looks at him, screams, hits the car, walks off, limps off into the swamp. The sheriff turns the corner. As he's driving down towards us, he sees the police car all smashed in the middle of the road. He puts his lights on. He comes down. He's taking this deputy's report, and he's like, "Why didn't you shoot it with the shotgun?" And the deputy is like, the shotgun wasn't big enough. He just said the shotgun wasn't big enough. And then he's taking our report. And at this point, the cattle rancher comes racing up in his pickup truck. And he says, "You got to come back to my ranch. You got to see what this damn skunk ape did to my prize bull." Now, this guy had a white Brahma bull with a hump in its neck. This thing was the size of a minivan, okay? If it was 2,500 pounds, it weighed an ounce. It was humongous. And the reason I know how big this thing was is because I used to jog that 2-mile radius every day. I was into the martial arts, and I was training, and my cousin was a weightlifter, and he stayed in the garage and worked out, and I jogged. And one day I was running past one of the neighbors' house who had a St. Bernard, and the lady was coming home from grocery shopping, and she hit the automatic gate to open up so she could pull in, and the dog came out charging after me, and I'm running for my life. And South Florida is not like New York. There's not a lot of trees, and the ones that are there don't have any branches. And I'm looking for some place to get away from this monster Cujo kind of dog because he's gaining on me. And I see the cattle rancher's fence. And the cattle rancher's fence was only a 4-foot fence. It couldn't hold that bull if it didn't want to stay in there. And it could hold the cows if the cows didn't want to be in there. But I did a dive over the fence, a tuck and roll over the fence. And when I got on the other side of the fence, that bull was standing there looking at me. And like face to face, this thing was a beast. And I remember that year at the rodeo, I went over to the cowboys who were riding the bulls, and I was like, how come you guys don't ride the bulls like they fight in, Spain, And he goes, no, we don't ride fighting bulls. He goes, but the Brahma bulls are the worst ones to get. He said, they're ornery. They're mean and they're ornery, and you really don't want to draw a Brahma bull, And I was like, I'm looking at this bull looking at me, but the dog had jumped up against the fence, and he was making so much noise that the bull was focusing on him. And as the bull was focusing on the dog, I was using the cows as shields to get to the gate so I could get out of the pasture. At the same time, the lady down the street is calling her dog back. So once the dog went back to that house, I went out that side gate and ran over to our house, which was, down the street, maybe eighth of a mile or whatever, and so I know how big this bull is. And when this guy is telling the the sheriff, you got to see what it did to my prize bramble. I was like, what could it possibly do to this bull? This bull is probably, just as big as it. So we're following the sheriff. He's following the cattle rancher, and the sheriff has got his spotlight pointing towards the pasture, and he's spanning the pasture. And there, in the middle of the pasture, is this white Brahma bull, just laying there on its belly, bleeding out with no head. And I couldn't believe what my eyes were seeing. I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't wrap my head around how this creature, the kind of strength this creature must have to stop this charging bull and then rip its head off. And then, like 100 yards away at the other end of the pasture, was the head just laying in the pasture, where this creature just threw it, and it was insane. I mean, like, this whole thing was happening in slow motion. It was all happening in slow motion. It was surreal. It felt like a dream. And, that particular summer, we were seeing a lot of reports on the news of the skunk apes, all around us, and other towns all around us. And, by state police, county police, town police. We would hear reports on the radio. We would see reports in the newspaper. So we knew this stuff was happening all around us. And it was just mind-boggling. That night they called, the state police came out, the county police came out, and they had helicopters and horses and dogs, and they searched the swamp high and low all night long till the next day. And we thought that the reporters were going to come to our house and ask us questions, because we were really the only witnesses, people who witnessed everything. And we couldn't wait to see, As a matter of fact, we got up like at 7:00 in the morning. My cousin drove to the local Winn-Dixie, and we bought all the newspapers thinking it was going to be in the newspapers. But it was never mentioned in anything, and we never had anybody come to our house and ask us to report about it, and like we didn't understand why, because all summer long we were seeing reports about this stuff, but it was just so incredible, and it was just so mind-blowing. And I told my cousin Anthony, I said, man, I can't wait to get back to New York to tell my brother about this. It's going to blow his mind. And he was like, no, you can't tell anybody about it, because I'm Italian, and the way my family shows its love is the more they love you, the more they break your chops. And my cousin Anthony wasn't good with having his chops broken. And he's like, if you tell anybody, I'm going to beat you up. And, I didn't want to have to fight my cousin. We fought enough as it was, So he was like a brother to me growing up. And so I never told anybody about it for like 30 years until my brother wrote his first book called Frank Sanderiga Paranormal Family and Friends. And then I told him, actually, he called my sister. And my sister said, you should talk to your brother. Your brother's the one with all the experiences. And he'll tell you what happened down here, And then he called me, and I told him, he's like, why didn't you ever tell me? I said, because Anthony threatened to beat me up. Who wants to fight him? I didn't want to fight him. He's my cousin. And so I never told anybody. I mean, I told my two best friends growing up about it, but I didn't tell any of my cousins, because I knew if I just told one cousin, it would have went around the whole family like wildfire, and then we would have never heard the end of it, So, and yeah, that's my Skunk Ape story, So experience.
Do you want to get into the dogman encounter that showed up at your house?
Sure. You want to talk about the dogman too?
Sure.
Okay. There's a whole experience that goes along with this little part I'm going to talk about, but we were out investigating a location that had a lot of Sasquatch sightings. and a lot of paranormal stuff going on there as well. UFOs, the whole 9 yards. And we were out. It was Halloween, Hallows Eve. There was a full moon that night. There was a meteor shower. And when I was scouting locations, I came across a location that was up on a ridge that had 3 quartz crystal stones set up in a pyramid. And it was about 4.5 miles away from where our car was. So I said, let's start here, and then we'll work our way back towards our car, because it was the high ridge location that was called the meadow. And then at the last location was going to be called the campsite. So anyway, we were up on the high ridge, and we're sitting up on the high ridge. And I like to do day, night. I like to go old school, new school, because you never know what's going to work. And we're sitting on the ridge, and it's getting dark, and it's really, really cold. It's like 20 degrees out that night. And we got high coyotes going off on the western part of the woods, and dog kennel on the eastern part barking at the coyotes or howling at the moon. And it was just crazy night. And something came up. I had my parabolic mic going, and something came walking up to us. And you could hear bipedal footprints coming, boom, 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 walking towards us. So we didn't have a fire going. We had glow sticks for ambient light. We didn't want to give away our location because we didn't know if there were going to be any other paranormal teams in the woods that night, being Halloween. And we're all just sitting there. We had our headlamps off in the pitch black, and we heard whoop, whoop, whoop. And the guys I were with never experienced anything like that. They were like, what was that? And I was like, I know what that is, man. That's a Bigfoot, you know? And this Bigfoot, not only were we 50 feet up on a ridge, but this Bigfoot was like 100 yards away from us in the woods. We couldn't see him. And we had all kinds of cameras going. We had full spectrum, thermal, IR, and a low light camera. We couldn't see him. But at that point, my cameraman was like, I think it's time to go. And I was like, no, I feel like there's more to come. I really do. I'm not ready to leave yet. So we were sitting there, and about 20 minutes goes by, and we hear something coming down from the trees. We don't know what it is. We just hear branches breaking coming down. And this Sasquatch had thrown a rock at us over the top of the trees, and it came down right in between the 3 of us. And this thing was the size of a bowling ball. And it rolls, and it hits my tech guy's chair. And my tech guy goes, okay, I think it's time to go. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready to go. You know, I think there's more to come. I don't want to leave too soon. And these guys are like, Al, you know, you're crazy. Let's get out of here. You know, I'm like, no, I think there's more to come. So we're sitting there. And up here in the Northeast, we have a lot of these stone walls that run through the woods in all different directions. Some parallel one another, about 10 feet apart. Nobody knows who built them, but they're about 3 feet high, 2 feet wide, whatever. And they're all just, you know, really, I think they were built during the revolution, you know what I mean? To fight behind. That's what my theory is. But my camera guy is sitting against this stone wall with his back to the stone wall. I'm in between him and my tech guys to the right of me. And we hear something charging up the ridge. Now, this is a quadruped, and it's coming. Bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. It's coming. We don't know what it is. I don't know at this point. I don't know if Sasquatches bluff charge us. And this thing is charging up the ridge. And my camera guy gets up, and he starts to run past me. And I reach out and grab him. I've never even looked his way. I kept my eyes on where I heard the sound coming from. I reached out and grabbed him and stopped him dead. I spun him around, and I said, stand your ground. And then the tech guy jumped up, and both of those guys pulled out their 18-inch machetes. That night, we had 18-inch machetes, 10-inch survival knives, and pepper spray on us. I don't let anybody come out with me with any firearms because I don't trust anybody with firearms other than myself And if I'm not having one, you're not having one. And at this point, I'm yelling, put your headlamps on. And we put our headlamps on, and we hear this bipedal thing come running up there. It's, it's a lot of leaf litter on the ground. It's Halloween, and we hear it coming on the other side of this wall. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's going to be a mountain lion. It's going to hit that wall, and it's going to go for me because I'm the first guy in line. So I pull out my 10-inch survival knife because I'm in between the trees. The machete's too big. And I'm thinking I'm going to have to sacrifice my left arm and kill this thing with this knife. Well, the sound comes right up to the wall and stops. Nothing ever comes over the wall. And we're waiting with anticipation for something to come over that wall. Nothing comes over the wall. And the thought comes to me, I got a little Sony camera hanging around my neck. And the thought comes to me, take a picture of where you hear the sound. So I take one photograph of where I hear the sound. It's a small camera. I can't really see if there's anything in the photo. We never heard the sound leave. We didn't hear anything jump off the ridge, go back down the ridge. We never heard it leave. So at that point, I said, let's jump over the wall and see what's on the other side. So we jump over the wall, and we're on the other side of the wall, and we got all the cameras going, and a camera guy's got a 1500 luma flashlight. He lights up the woods like it's daytimes. And to our surprise, right underneath us is a swamp. We didn't even know the swamp was there because we never seen the swamp. I didn't go over that wall when I was doing the research on the location. Once I found those 3 quartz crystal stones, that's where I stopped. So we didn't know there was a swamp there. And so we're looking, we don't see anything. We never heard anything leave. We're debating on what happened. And we leave that night. That was in October, November, early, I guess it was November 1st. June, July comes, and I'm being pulled to the swamp. Something is pulling me to the swamp. And somebody calls me up. We put all our stuff on our Facebook page, and we put it up raw. And somebody calls me up and says, hey, Al, in that photograph you took of the stone wall? He said, you got a dog man behind that wall. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, dude, you got a picture of a dog man behind that wall. So I said, send it to me. So he sends it to me. And there you could see a nose, 2 pointy ears, a block head, and eye shine. And its nose is just over the wall. And I guess the flash from my camera lit up its eyes or whatever, but just enough to see the head. That's all you see is the head sniffing us over the wall. And I was like, oh man, this is photoshopped for sure, So I go get my SD card. I throw it in my computer. Now we've had our evidence review of that night. There's 8 of us looking at all these photographs. Nobody's seen anything, so I guess fresh eyes. It really goes to tell you about fresh eyes on stuff. And so anyway, there's a dog man in the picture. So now I call my camera guy up and my tech guy, and I said, listen, I'm going back. You guys don't have to come with me. I know I put you in harm's way that night, and I don't blame you if you don't want to come, but I'm being pulled. I got to go back. So if you guys don't want to come, I get it. And they were both, no, you're going, we're going with you. And I said, okay, but if you guys come with me, don't take me in different directions. I want to just go here. And they were like, okay, Al, we'll just go to the swamp. So we're on our way to the swamp. We get about 100 yards from the swamp, and I'm getting hit with infrasound. And I'm overheating. I'm feeling nauseous. I'm sick as a dog. And my camera guy's like, let's turn around. Let's go back. And I'm like, nope, I know I'm being hit with infrasound. I got to get behind a big tree or a rock or something to block this vibration so it doesn't screw me up. I get behind a big tree. I sit behind a big tree. The tech guy gives me some water and stuff. I was sitting back there for about 20 minutes. And my camera guy's like, let's go back. And I'm like, dude, I can see the swamp from where we're at. There's no way I'm turning around now. I'm too close to turn around. I've been being pulled here all winter. I'm 100 yards away and you want me to turn around? I can't do it. If you want to go back, but I got to go. So then we all head over and we all start searching. And, there's 3 pretty experienced researchers here, and we're investigators, and we're looking around, and we're not finding anything. We're not seeing anything. It's like we got blinders on our eyes. We're not seeing anything that's like right in front of our eyes. So at one point, there's this big, giant, megalithic stone next to the swamp. And a little voice in the back of my head says, jump up on the stone. So I jump up on the stone, and it says, take your walking stick and move these cattails. So I take my walking stick and I move these cattails, and right in front of me is a trackway leading into the middle of the swamp. So now I call my tech guy up, my camera guy up. He zooms in with his camera, and we zoom into the swamp, and there's a den in the middle of the swamp. And we're filming the den, and we're not really seeing what's in the den, but we can see there's a den in the middle of the swamp. So my camera guy goes, I'm going in, and he goes in, and his first step in, he sinks down to his knees in the mud, and we got to pull him out. So then we start walking around, looking around, and now all of a sudden the blinders are gone. We can see arches and X's and breaks and bends. There's something with down trees. Giant down trees. It looks set up like a corral, like it's like a homemade corral with down trees. We find scat, all of this stuff that we weren't even seeing before. We're seeing now. We're taking pictures of everything. Little voice says, go up on that hill, look over to the back of the swamp. I go over to the other side of the swamp. I go up on the hill. I look down, and there's an exit out of the back of the swamp going right down the middle of the swamp. And you can see a trackway going right down the middle of the swamp. So we go back to the camera guy's house. He's got like a 60-inch TV. We throw it up, and we're reviewing everything. And we get to the part where he's zooming in on the den, and just as he's zooming in on the den, his mom comes in, and she's bringing in coffee and cake. And she goes, you guys want coffee and cake? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Of course, we'll have some coffee and cake. And she looks at the picture of the den, and she says, what are those 2 little monkeys doing in that den? And we're like, what monkeys? And she points them out. Now, this is the crazy part. There's a dog man in the den that looks like something from Van Helsing, okay? He's big, he's massive, he's got pointed ears. He's looking away from us. We see the back of his head and his shoulders. Next to him is another dog man, much smaller, with a block head. This, we believe, is the one that bluff charged us. Is looking at us, and it's snarling at us like it's pissed off that we found its den, and it's snarling at us. Next to it is one of the little monkeys, and in between the 2 little monkeys, which we believe were baby Sasquatch, is something that looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon. I don't know if it was a reptilian. I don't know if it was a lizard man. I can't tell you what it was, but this thing is sitting there in the den with the 2 dogmen holding the baby Sasquatches by their hands. He was holding their hands. So we're just flipping out. We're like, we got to go back to this den. We got to get a drone. We got to fly it in a drone. All of this stuff is going through our heads, which is like 1,000 miles an hour. We're going crazy. Well, that fall, it was about, I would say, September, late September. We got like an Indian summer up here that year, and my bedroom is on the first floor. And being from the city, I never open my bedroom windows on the first floor. I don't sleep with my windows open, because if you're from the city and you're on the first floor and you sleep with your windows open, somebody's coming in. Okay. I live in the country now. It's a nice, quiet neighborhood. We have no streetlights. We have no sidewalks. I got 100 acres of apple orchard behind me and 100 acres of wetlands across the street from me. It's nice, beautiful, quiet country, but it's dark. Okay. And I had already taken the air conditions out of the windows. It's a hot night and I'm sweating bullets. And I say to myself, I'm going to do something I never do. I'm going to open the window tonight. I just can't sleep. So I open the window and I'm laying there in bed, and we have this little cat in between. One of our cats is laying in between me and my wife, and I'm sleeping. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what time it was, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up. I just pop up and I feel like there's something on the other side of my bedroom wall out in the yard. And a little voice in my head says, feel the wall. And I feel the wall. And I'm trying to feel the energy of what's on the other side of it. Now, I've had Sasquatches come through my property a lot, being apple orchards and stuff. And they leave me gifts on my fire pit. I have a red stone fire pit. And every now and then they'll leave a quartz crystal stone out there for me, you know. I've heard them walk through while I was out there at the fire pit. But this is not a Bigfoot energy. This is no good, this energy. And all of a sudden I hear what sounds like a sniff on the other side of the window screen. When I hear the sniff, the cat wakes up, jumps straight out of the bed, runs upstairs. Sounds like a herd of elephants going up the steps and hides underneath my daughter's bed. Now, I don't know what's out there. I get up and I stick my head up against the screen to see if I could see anything, which was probably a stupid move. But I do it anyway. I don't see anything. It's pitch black in the yard. And I say, okay, let me shut the window and go into the kitchen and put the sensor lights in the yard, see what's out there. I keep a pistol grip shotgun on the side of my bed in between my guitars. And it's got a 100 luma flashlight on it. So I grab the shotgun and I start to walk towards the kitchen. I'm in the hallway outside the bedroom door. And as I'm walking down the hallway, the little voice in my head says, stop. You don't want to see what's out there. Go back to bed. And this goes against every fiber of my being. I'm the type of guy, if there's something going on my property, I got to go and investigate. I don't want anything to happen to anybody else in my family because I didn't take the time to look. But I turn around, I go back to bed, I put the gun between the guitars, I go to sleep, I get up in the morning, I go to work, I call my guys up and tell them what happened. I think a dog man came to my house. So they said, check the backyard when you get home tonight for footprints, for tracks. Now, I had just run new lines from the well. I have well water. I had just run new lines from the well to the house. And where the lines run, they run underneath my bedroom window. So when I got home that night, I figured there won't be any grass over here. It's all dirt from where we put down the new lines. I haven't planted any grass yet. And let's see if there's any tracks in it. Well, I get home that night, and right underneath my bedroom window are 4 claw marks in the dirt, kind of saying, yeah, I was here last night, right? So I was like, okay, now I got to back up a little bit. While we were at the den that day searching around, I had urinated at one point, which I thought was in the woods. I was just urinating in the woods. But anyway, I take pictures of the claw marks in the dirt. I take pictures of my window to show where they are and to my window where these claw marks are and how far away from the window it was. And this thing was right up against my wall, sniffing me through the window. So that happens. Now it's getting cold out. We're into November, and it's we have some wild dogs running through the neighborhood tearing up garbages and stuff, right? So every morning I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go outside, start my car, come back in, let it warm up to leave around 5. But I started carrying the pepper spray and a pocket knife with me when I went outside because I didn't want to be a statistic on a government chart and get mauled by a pack of dogs. So I got 4 cars in my driveway. There's my daughter's car, my son's car, my wife's car. Mine's the closest to the street because I'm the first one to leave. I go into the car. As I'm walking out my front door, I walk down the walkway, and I feel like there's something behind me looking at me. So I turn around, and I'm looking. I got the lights on outside, on the front steps and on the walkway. And I'm looking back at my house, and I don't see anything. And we don't have any shrubs or anything between my house and my neighbor's house. It's like one open piece of property. Everybody the kids just run all over the place, from one neighbor to the other. They think they're all their yards, And I'm looking at my neighbor's house on either side of me. I don't see anything. And I'm walking, but I feel like there's something behind me watching me. I don't know what it is. I blow it off. I get to the car, start up the car, let it run up. As I'm walking back to the car, I feel like there's something underneath the front deck. I had just had a new 7-foot retaining wall put up on the right side of the deck because the right side was leaning, and I was going to do the right side 1 year and the left side the following. So I had a new wall on the right side. And as I'm walking back towards the front steps, I put my hands up over my eyes because the sensor lights on the deck are blinding me, and I can't see what's under the deck. But when I go like this, I can see like a shadow under there. And I'm like, what the hell's under my deck? So I flip open the knife. I take the pepper spray out. I don't know if it's a homeless person. I mean, we don't have any homeless people up here, but I don't know if it's a homeless person. I'm from the city. I don't know who's under my deck, but my wife and my daughter's got to come out, and I'm not letting anybody, sleep underneath my deck. And as I'm getting closer to this shadow, I hear a voice in my head say, you should stop right about here, And I'm thinking, no, I don't think so. If there's somebody under my deck, I'm not stopping. And as I'm getting closer and closer, I'm seeing the biggest canine head you've ever seen, with pointed ears and a mane coming down his shoulders and down his chest. I don't see eye shine. I don't see teeth. I don't have a flashlight on me. I got the sensor lights in my eyes. This thing is in the shadows, but I'm seeing all of this stuff. Now the red flags go off, and a little voice in my head said, something says to me, I don't know if it's the voice in my head or if it's the actual creature telling me, you should stop right there before you get shredded. That's what I heard, the word shredded. So I stopped, and I backed up, and I started walking towards the house, and I'm thinking, okay, what do I do? Oh, at one point, as I was walking towards the garage door, I have a little cat that lives outside in the dog house. His name is Callie. She's like 7 pounds soaking wet. And I had opened the door 4 o'clock in the morning to feed her, the sliding glass door. And then I locked the door back up. I have 3 different locks on my sliding glass door because I'm from the city. And so Callie's coming around the front of the house to use my wife's garden for the bathroom. And she sees something under the deck. She does like a Halloween cat. She jumps up straight in the air and she runs towards the woods. And this 7-pound cat sounds like a bulldozer running through the woods. So that's another red flag right there that kind of stopped me dead. Because I don't know what she's seeing, but whatever it is, it scared the hell out of her. So I back up and I start walking. I say, okay, what do I do? I got a lot of guns. I'm a gun guy. I have a lot of powerful rifles and stuff. And I'm thinking, do I get the guns, wake up my son and my son-in-law, give everybody a high-powered rifle, and go outside and shoot this thing? Do I go to war with this thing? And then I say no, because I've heard so many stories where people go to war with these things and it ends bad for them. I'm not going to go to war with this. As a matter of fact, I'm not even going to tell anybody what I saw. But as I was leaving to go to work, I took out my tactical flashlight and I hit underneath the deck with the tactical flashlight because I wanted to light this up now. I wanted to see what was under there. And when I look, there's nothing under there. And I walk over to the front, to the garage door. I'm in between the wall and my daughter's car. And there's maybe 4 feet of space between my daughter's car and the garage door where the drain goes down, that catches the water that puts it back out towards the street. And there on my brand new retaining wall, this creature had urinated on my retaining wall. And it stunk to high heaven. Smelled like vinegar and oil, and it was just like an oily slick that was all over my retaining wall and down into my drain. And I was not happy about that because it was a brand new wall and I didn't know how I was going to get the smell off or the stain off. And I get in the car and I drive to work. I'm an hour away from work. I go to work. I get to work early. I'm sitting down in the lunchroom having coffee, reading the paper. And my wife calls me and she's hysterical. And I go, what's the matter? She said, I went to open up the door to feed Callie at 7:00 when I got up. And thank God Nick was in the kitchen with me because the whole door fell out of the frame and he caught it. Otherwise, it would have crushed me. And I was like, what are you talking about? I said, I fed Callie at 4:00 in the morning. Why are you feeding her again at 7? And she said, I don't know what happened, but the frame, I said, look, I'm off tomorrow. When I'm off, I'll reset the door. I'll reframe it and everything. I'll reset the door. Just tell Nick to put it up and lock everything in place. And I think this creature, when I was looking for it underneath the deck with the flashlight, he was on my back deck trying to pop my sliding glass door out of its tracks to kind of show me how easy it would be to get into my house if it wanted to get in. You know, we wouldn't even have to break the glass. But because I'm insane with locks, because I come from the city, my door locks in 3 different directions. He couldn't pop the frame out because the locks go into the wall, into the ceiling. So he couldn't pop the frame out. And the following day, I got home. When I woke up, I reset everything, and I got the message. He's telling me, you came to my house and you urinated on my property. I'm going to urinate on your property. I know you know where I live. I know where you live. So I went back to the den a couple of weeks later, and by myself, I went back there and I just went up on the ridge and I looked down at the swamp and at the den, and I said, listen, I don't know if you're here or not, but I got the message. I know where you live. You know where I live. Don't worry about it. I'm not coming back here anymore, you know? And I never went back to the den after that ever again because I didn't want him coming back to my house.
That's crazy. I don't know what I would do in that situation. Honestly, I mean, you have bigger cojones than I've got going out there with a pocket knife and like a flashlight. No, I'm sorry, but I do got questions.
Okay,
I got
absolutely.
questions. So we're gonna go back to your encounter back when you were like 12. So when you saw that thing, when you opened the door, how did you feel? What was your sense of feeling in that?
When I looked through the window, the front window, when I seen it the first time,
Yeah.
I was just frozen with fear. I didn't know what I was looking at. I thought it was King Kong. You know what I mean? It was just like I tell people all the time, people tell me, I want to see one of these things with my own two eyes. I want to see them up close and personal. I tell them all the time, your brain cannot comprehend what your eyes are seeing because these things are not supposed to exist. And it just bogs you down. You know what I mean? You're in awe of the size of these things. You're just in awe because they're massive. They're just massive.
Um, can you kind of describe its body structure? I know you went over the height and how wide it was and maybe how thick it was, but what was the overall body structure of this quote unquote skunk ape?
It was broad at the shoulders, tapered down a little bit at the waist. Not a lot like a bodybuilder. More almost built like a refrigerator, like that kind of shape, but a little tapered at the waist. Massive arms, long down to its knees. Its hands hung down to its knees. His arms, even when they were stretched out, just hanging over, you could see the muscle mass. The muscle mass was huge, and his chest was huge and shoulders. I mean, I remember my cousin Anthony, for a 15-year-old kid, had a big back. He was a weightlifter and he had, big shoulders. And I remember looking at this thing's shoulders saying, my God, I mean, my cousin's got a big back for a 15-year-old kid. This is like 4 or 5 feet wide. I mean, it was just massive. Its legs were like tree trunks. It was just massive.
Can you describe its face at all?
Face was very ape-like. It was very ape-like, conical head. Like I said, when it screamed, you can see its canines. Its eyes were red, but I honestly don't know if it was red because they were red from the creature or if it was reflecting the light from the sensor lights on the house reflecting in its eyes. I'm not really sure whether they were red. Like, I don't remember seeing them when it walked off towards the woods. I don't remember seeing its eyes glowing red when it walked off. You know what I mean? But when it was looking at me and it was screaming, they were red. They were blood red. And he had big canines and he was just massive. His hands were massive, like baseball mitts, like a first baseman's mitt. Hands were huge.
Okay. Claws or fingers?
Fingers.
Okay. So when you saw this thing walking away and you and your cousin kind of followed it while you were inside the house, doing the smart thing, keeping the lights off, do you think, well, one, what was its stride? Did it just nonchalantly just kind of walk? Because you said it would always, whenever you looked out a window, it was always looking at you or
Yeah,
looking towards the house.
like its upper body was turned towards the house, like it was watching us, but it was walking straight. It wasn't in any rush. You know what I mean? It was just walking nonchalantly. It had a leisurely pace. It wasn't moving fast. It wasn't a fast walk, a brisk walk. It was just very leisurely. Like, I'm the king out
Yep.
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, come on. I dare you. Come outside. I dare you. Okay. That's the kind of that's the way I felt when you were telling the story. Like if either one of you guys decided to F around and find out, you guys would have found out.
No one was even thinking about finding out. You know what I mean? Like we like I remember telling my cousin, sitting with my cousin and my sister, my brother-in-law at the kitchen table, saying, "Man, we live in the city, and it's bad enough just cutting through an alleyway. We got to worry about getting killed. We got to come to Florida and get killed by this monster." You know what I mean? Like I said, my cousin didn't believe in Bigfoot. I did, but even though he didn't believe in it, everybody always thought it was just in the Pacific Northwest. You know what I mean? Nobody thought it was in Florida or New York or anything like that. Everything you ever heard was Pacific Northwest, California, Oregon, Washington State, British Columbia, stuff like that,
Describe the scream, like to your best ability. When it comes to mind, what animal or animals would you say if those were combined, this would come similar to what you heard?
Sound like Godzilla, but deeper. Not as high pitched as Godzilla, but deeper. It was it. I know that sounds ridiculous because there's not an animal out there that sounds like it when it screams. Believe me.
You want to bet?
Well, I've heard a dog man scream, and I've heard a Bigfoot scream, and I've heard a rake scream, and
It's funny that you mentioned Godzilla because my last episode, um, he described the scream as like Godzilla. One of my last episodes.
no
It
kidding,
it
really.
was oh, let me look. Let me look real quick. It was episode. Give me a second here. I believe it was harassed by Sasquatch in the Adirondacks.
Oh, okay.
I believe it was Gunnar who said that um it was like a cross between Godzilla but louder. So yeah, I find it real interesting that you use Godzilla as well. So that just makes you think.
Yeah. The only thing I've ever heard that came close to it was a lion. We were at a park once, and one of the male lions was going off. I don't know if he was in heat or just having a bad day, but he was really, really going off, and everybody was running away from the exhibit because this thing was just so loud. And I think it was like the what do you call that? I can't think of the word. It was screaming so loud. The infrasound.
Yeah.
I think it was scaring everybody off. You know what I
Mm.
mean? People were running away because they thought this lion was going to get out. He was in a pit. You know what I mean? A deep pit. He wasn't behind a cage, and I was running towards it.
Yeah.
Because it was the closest thing I ever heard to the Bigfoot going off, but as loud as it was and as deep as it was, it still wasn't quite that roar like Godzilla. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Describe how big that watermelon was, roughly.
It was a nice sized watermelon. I would say like this, size of a basketball, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. It
Right.
was one of those round ones. It wasn't the oblong ones.
And he just took a bite and just dropped the rest.
Just took a bite and dropped the rest. Yeah, because there was just nothing left but nubs.
Yeah. So let's fast forward to the Mustang. So I mean, I've seen wild Mustang, amazing animals. You hear, it's they have a spirit that truly can't be tamed. You know,
Yeah,
e-
absolutely. Yeah.
even if you make it to where you can ride one, it's decided to let you ride it
Yes.
because if it wants to, you will not be on that horse,
No.
regardless of how great of a horseman you think you are. And so, what was the outcome of that Mustang after the whole ordeal that happened? Did the horse rancher keep the Mustang there, or was it moved to a new location? And did the Mustang's demeanor change at all? Do you know?
Yeah, it felt like the horse rancher kept it, but it felt like, according to the Native American, and I believe he was Seminole Native American, it was like starting from scratch again because the horse was so freaked out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now let me take a drink here real quick. Sorry about that. The bull. You hate to hear something like that happen. But did the authorities and the cattle rancher were they able to come out with any more information? I mean, it's obvious, what had happened, but were there any more official not documentation, but like official. I don't even know the word I'm looking for.
Nah, there was nothing ever written about it or said about it. We never heard anything on the evening news or on the radio news or nothing in the newspapers. It was like it never happened, you know. And like I said, if it wasn't for this woman who reached out to me, who was a kid in South Florida at the time, and her father had a business in Davie, and her uncle was a cop in the next town over. I think the next town over was New City, and so she was hearing all these reports from her father as a kid around the kitchen table. You know what I mean? So
Right.
she kind of lived it from afar, from the next town over.
Now, what county is Davie in?
I think Davie is in what's the name of that? Man, it's been so long. It's in South Florida, just north of Miami. So what, Dade County, I
Yeah,
think.
I was going to say I used to live
Yeah.
in Lakeland and
Okay.
Newport Richey and Daytona.
Okay.
So I've been, east, west, and central of the state. Sorry about that. Is it Davie or EY?
I believe it's IE.
IE. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. I think if it's around Miami, because I think Dade
Yeah, it
County
was
is
right
huge.
next to Fort Lauderdale. You know what I mean? Because when we flew in, we used to fly into Fort Lauderdale. We didn't fly into Miami. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um. So what wound up happening with the bull? What did the rancher do? Um.
Yeah, I think they took the bull out and on a semi or something. You know, if I remember correctly, they came in with a bulldozer or something and picked it up, or a backhoe or something,
Mm.
and they put it on a semi and they took it out, or a flatbed or whatever it was. You know, maybe it was a flatbed. You know, but he didn't bury it on the property, and I remember them taking it out. Like, I don't know if it was the state police who took it or what, but
But you saw the bull.
I seen the bull up close and personal. Like I said, when I jumped over that fence running away from that St. Bernard,
Yeah.
that bull was like 10 feet away from me, just looking at me like, we're crazy, you know? And
No, I mean
I
the
was like,
aftermath.
uh, let me tell you something. The cows in that pasture were humongous. I don't know what kind of
Yeah.
cows they were, but they were huge. I couldn't believe how big the cows were. Never mind the bull, you know? The
Yeah.
bull was a
But
monster.
but you saw the aftermath of what had
Yes.
happened.
Yeah.
So as a 12-year-old boy, you go over, with your
Brother-in-law, my
your
cousin.
brother-in-law and your cousin,
Yeah.
and you get out of the car and you have eyes on the body of this bull.
Yes, I could see it.
Wow.
I could picture it in my head right now, like I was standing on the other side of that fence looking at it. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. When I came back to New York, I couldn't sleep in my room for like, I couldn't sleep at night for like 2 years. I was so freaked out because my bedroom used to be a porch, and my father was a carpenter, and he closed it off and made a bedroom out of it, and the only window he had for it was a big picture window. So I used to think it was gonna Bigfoot was gonna come in and reach through the window and grab me, because my bedroom was the size of like a prison cell. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I was like, this thing could reach through this glass and get me and just yank me right out, So I really was screwed up for a couple of years at night. And like I said, we used to hang out in the woods. We were always in the woods as kids. And we had like 3 different woods we would just spend time in. And I was fine during the day, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But as soon as it started to get dark, I had to get out of those woods. And there was times, as kids, you tell your parents I'm sleeping over this one's house, and he says then, and then we had forts in the woods, and we'd sleep in the fort, all night
Oh yeah.
long. There was no more sleeping in the forts at night,
No.
No.
Mm-mm. And I only have a couple questions with the whole dog man, because I think you were very, very thorough in everything that you had discussed and talked about. My one main question was, so do you think that it was this creature that was subliminally telling you where to go or what to see or get out of here? Um, or do you think it was something else?
I think I hear like when I'm on location and I'm investigating, I hear the little voice in the back of my head tells me to do stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And up until the point, like when I heard the voice say, "You should stop right about here," I thought it was my voice or whatever my guide is or my guardian angel. But when I heard, "You should leave now, or you're gonna get shredded," I think it was the dog man's voice telling me that, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think my guardian angel or my guide or whatever it is that I hear in the back of my head telling me, I don't think it was my guide telling me you should leave now or you're going to get shredded. I think it was coming from the creature itself. But up until that point, when I was hearing like you should stop, you should back out, that was my voice or
Yeah.
whatever attached to me. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to ask the $10 million question here because a lot of people are going to say, man, there's no way that you saw baby Bigfoot, dog man, and the creature from the Black Lagoon all in the same den and area. Do you think that these juvenile or infant Sasquatch were kidnapped by the dog man? And do you think what you think as the lizard man or creature from the Black Lagoon may have been, because again, you didn't physically see these, correct?
Not at the time. No, we seen it when we reviewed the
Okay.
video. Yeah,
Do you think that the video was distorted some way that the creature that you saw that potentially was holding the hands of these two infant Sasquatch was in fact maybe another dog man? Is that a possibility?
I don't think so. No,
No? Okay.
no, I don't think so. This thing, it looked, like we all have our own opinions on the team. I call it the creature from the Black Lagoon. Everybody laughs,
Right.
but someone will say it looked like a lizard man to me. Someone else will say it looked like a reptilian. Now, every reptilian seems to be the theme that everybody goes with. It was a reptilian. Now, whether the reptilian was taking the little Sasquatches away or was bringing them back, I don't know. But I didn't see any pups in the den. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Um, but I know the one that was snarling at us was the one I got the photograph of um,
At the rock wall.
behind the wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what happened later on that night, I didn't get into it, but later on that night, we did a Native American ceremony and I was taking photographs and we had like all kinds of orbs all around us with faces in it. But in the shadows, in the trees, in the shadow, again, same guy who found the dog man picture, he found there was a Sasquatch underneath this one little red maple tree, like on its hands, like this, on its
Mhm.
like laying on its belly, watching us,
Mm.
from the shadows, because it was right where the lights from the flash ended, and this guy seen it and he sent it to me. And again, I thought it was photoshopped, but it was there. And I think this was the same Bigfoot that threw the rock at us. And I think it whooped and I think it wanted us, it was trying to get us out of there because we were in harm's way.
Yeah.
But we didn't know we were in harm's way because we didn't know. I had never heard of any reports of a dog man in that area, and we didn't know there was a den in the swamp, in the middle of the swamp. That wasn't what we were there for. But
Right.
I truly believe he was trying to get us out of there. And when we were at the second location, the meadow, because that's where we got the picture of him, I truly believe he was hanging around just to make sure nothing followed us back.
Do you think that that when you have that video of inside the den, do you think that the dog man that knew you were there because it was snarling at you
Oh
in the
yeah, he was
video,
looking right at us. Yeah.
do you think it was aware of the lizard man, or the maybe trying to help the two young Sasquatch out of there? Because in for everything that I've heard and from what I understand, Dogman and Bigfoot do not get along.
No. Yeah, and then I mean, I don't believe they get along either. but I don't think the dog man was trying to help those baby Sasquatches. I don't know what that lizard man or reptilian or whatever it
No,
was.
I was asking.
Yeah.
Do you think the reptilian was trying to help the baby Sasquatch get away from that dog man?
I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know, because they were all in the den together. It was like the big male, the female, Sasquatch, the reptilian, the other Sasquatch. It wasn't like they were far apart from each other. You know
Okay.
what I mean? They were
Okay.
shoulder to shoulder.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're coming to the end, and I'd like for you to kind of plug, the New York State Sasquatch organization, the New York State Dogman Project. Go ahead and plug those, and then let people know where they can reach out to you if they've had an encounter or need you to help them with something in and around New York.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, you can find me at the New York State Sasquatch Organization. We have a hotline number. The hotline is 516-519-3648. We have another number, a regular number, an 845-293-2277. Those are both for the New York State Sasquatch Organization. You can find me there. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on Twitter as well. The New York State Dogman Project. If you go to the Facebook page, the group page, you could find me there as well. I'm also a Region 3 director of the North American Dogman Project for David Cook. And so if you go to the Region 3 North American Dogman Project Region 3 page, you can find me there as well. So, I'm all over the place on social media. I'm very accessible. If you reach out to me, drop me an email or text me or something, I'll get back to you as quick as I can. I don't have a problem getting back to people.
Cool. So you heard it, fellas. If you could send me those links in an email, and then I'll put them in the description of this channel or of this episode. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So if you hold off at just 1 second in the green room, I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Awesome. You guys, that's Al. What an incredible encounter, you guys. I'm going to have Al back for a couple of more episodes. He's had a lot more encounters, and with him being a researcher and an investigator, and then being involved with the New York State Sasquatch Organization and the New York State Dogman Project, he's had quite a few encounters, and I would love to have him come back on and share some more of those. But you guys, before we get out of here, I just want to let you know that on June 6th, 2026, yours truly will be speaking at the Arkansas Cryptid Fest. That is at Old Bart's at 600 North Broadway Street, North Little Rock, Arkansas, 72114. Mark the date. Save that date, June 6th, 2026. Also, you guys, the Cryptid Podcast can now be heard on CastBox, Podcast Addict, iHeart Podcast, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, Overcast, and again, of course, Spotify and YouTube. So if you guys can't find me on YouTube or Spotify, there's a few more places you can look for me. But even if you do follow me on those, check me out on the other ones. Subscribe, follow, leave a comment, leave a stars, thumbs up, whatever, how they give me a review, something like that. That'd be awesome. I truly appreciate it. And again, you guys, with me wanting to promote small businesses, there you go. We hunt, we watch, we brew. Ally Coffee Roasters and the Cryptid Podcast coming to you. So you guys can check them out at allycoffee.com. That's www.allycoffee.com. And again, if you guys have had an encounter and you'd like to come on the show, do not hesitate to drop me an email at thecryptidpodcast72@gmail.com. Again, thecryptidpodcast72@gmail.com. You guys, I am not going to get out of here with saying what my buddy Josh always says. You guys stay prayed up. And as I always like to say, remember, everyone, a legend begins with a sighting. Have a great night, and I'll see you on the next show.
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?